I'm John.
I'm John. Brandon.
And I'm Moises.
We're the Curators, and our project is the Gallery Gateway project. So we're going to go over the domain and the customer needs first, and we'll step into our process methodology. We'll explain our design and changes we've made to it. We'll go into our development and our current schedule, and then we'll end on testing. So this is our product domain and our customer vision. So to start off with, what is Gallery Gateway? So it's a gallery artwork submission platform that was made for RIT's College of Art and Design. So it was designed and implemented by one of last year's senior project teams, Project Abstraction. And so as it stands now, the college can go through, create a application period for an art show, like their annual end of the year honors art show. Students will submit pieces through Gallery Gateway. Faculty will go through, judge pieces based on merit, and the best pieces make it into their actual physical honors show. And all this happens through web. Like I said, currently it's just used by RIT's College of Art Design. Students submit pieces and then faculty either perform the administrative role or they perform judging. So that was all last year's project. So they focused mostly on jury gallery show, and for this year, this 2 semesters, our team is focused on scholarship awards. So the College of Art Design awards their student scholarships, like every college does on campus. To apply, students go through, they build a portfolio that showcases their professional ability as either an artist or a photographer. They submit this to the college, they go through, review it, and determine which students will receive what scholarships. And right now this all happens physically, and so our customer has decided, there's some issues with this. So to start off with, it's showcasing professional talent. That means the portfolio needs to be created professionally. And having all this printed runs about $200, and that comes out of the student's pocket whenever they apply for a scholarship. As well as that, they have to go through, or the department has to go through, receive, manage, and then distribute all these. As each member of the scholarship board goes through and individually reviews each portfolio before they make a decision. And so the goal is to move all of this into Gallery Gateway, since it already has the tools built in of submitting and judging. So the end goal is to have students go through, submit photos, build a portfolio, and then faculty will go through and judge these portfolios.
So I'll tell you a little bit about the process we used in development. So the design methodology was selected as Kanban. Kanban is an agile methodology primarily focused on workload visualization. What that means is you have a Kanban board where the tasks are sorted to a minimum of 3 columns. The requested, in progress, done, or to do, doing, done columns gives you an idea of what work is where. We did this through Trello. In addition to these 3 columns, we added a blocked column for work that's outside of our control. There are also, another important part of Kanban is work in progress limits, which means there is only a certain number of tasks that can be in your in progress column at any given time. This helps to identify bottlenecks. If something's not getting finished, we can tell. We set ours to 8. We found this was a good number that gives us some room to work, but if something's not happening, if we're not approving pull requests, we'll hit that limit and we'll need to realize that we need to go back and approve pull requests. The third important piece of Kanban is feedback loops, which basically just means regular meetings, constant communication. We do this through daily stand-ups. Our stand-ups are held bi-weekly simply because this isn't a full-time project and daily stand-ups are a little too much overhead, but we also have Slack communication. The matter needs to be discussed more urgently. There's the service delivery review, involves talking with the customer, making sure their needs are being met. We do that once a week. A risk review where we discuss risk mitigation strategy. That's also done once a week as part of one of our stand-ups or after one of our stand-ups. And operations review is for larger organizations, so we threw that out. So since Kanban's an agile process, requirement solicitation is an ongoing task. Obviously, we had some starting requirements, and we itemized those and brought them up with our sponsor at our first service delivery review to clear up any gaps in understanding, questions we might have. From there, we turned them into user stories to go into the requested section of our board, which generated more questions to be brought up at the next delivery review and so on. Again, it's an agile process, so user stories are constantly being created and updated and added to that requested section. So a few metrics for tracking, there's time tracking, everyone's required to do that. In addition, we have ticket velocity. The way we did ticket velocity, we've assigned all of our tickets t-shirt sizes, so small, medium, large, extra large, and we're tracking velocity based on how many of each size are completed per week, per 2 weeks. This gives us an idea of the pace we're working at, whether we need to pick up the pace and how much work we have left to do. And then additionally, we have product metric of code coverage just to make sure that we're getting our tests done.
So now we're gonna take a look at our design philosophy, both inherited and what we plan on doing for future implementation. So first of all, we got our inherited domain model, and one of the benefits of having a completely sort of finished viable product is that everything was sort of concretely built for us. So we were able to already take the domain model and tweak it as we saw fit. Some of the technologies we inherited too and sort of had to design around and within the constraints of. React is most of our front end, along with GraphQL is sort of our middleware to interact with our database, and MySQL all built on Docker container. Some of the additions and changes that we've made to our design is updating a domain model to reflect the new entities such as portfolios, scholarships, how those are judged, as well as us needing to update our current data model to support those updated things. So voting works differently for portfolios than it does for judging for an art show, so that object needs to be reworked and that model needs to be reworked, as well as making additions to art show submissions such as pseudonyms and display names and hometowns. That needs to be updated within already existing data models. So briefly just showing our new domain model, we're not going to go over it in depth. Everything in black is what has been added. Everything that is grayed out had already existed. If there are any specific questions about this, we'll be free to answer that later, but this is just a very quick high-level overview of how we are changing our domain. We also have some planned refactoring coming up in the future for our project. We've found instances of redundant code that we want to sort of trim down and try and get into single files. You can see for creating photos, videos, and other entries, the GraphQL mutations, it's literally the same file repeated, so we want to sort of condense issues like that, as well as separating pieces, decoupling that from show entries, because now it needs to be able to support in both portfolios and shows.
So let's talk about the development we've gotten done. After we went through our rounds of requirements elicitation, we kind of isolated 4 major groups of functionality. The ongoing task that we were kind of spreading across the whole year was the small requests and bug fixes. These kind of didn't fit in anything, so these were things like the hometown update for entities, and there was a problem with zip file compression. The major new functionality we split into the portfolio management, which is the students going on uploading pieces to their portfolio, the scholarship judging portal, which would be the judges and administrators going in, managing the submitted portfolios and assigning them grades. Then finally, a requested email notification system, since right now this Gallery Gateway doesn't actually let students know if they've been selected for shows or if their portfolio has been selected. So the sponsor asked if we could add that in, so we put that in there. This is just a prioritization, not a strict schedule. So some of the functionality moved around. We did a little bit forward or backwards based on the schedule, just if it made sense. We did have a bit of a rocky start. 4 out of 5 of us work on Windows Home machines, but our project is dependent on Docker, and Docker doesn't run very well on Windows Home. It runs on Windows Professional and Linux machines. So it was unclear whether or not we wanted a VM from the software engineering department or if we wanted to just make our own VMs to start development. The problem was exacerbated by a bit of slow communication between the SWEN system administrator and us, and took a little while to figure out. We eventually created our own Ubuntu VMs and cloned them between our machines, and this pushed our expected start of development from early October to late October. Once we did get going, we found that our velocity turned into about one small task, one medium task, and half of a large task over a 2-week period. There are quite a few factors that led to this slow velocity. Most of us didn't have very much familiarity with the technologies that we had inherited, so the learning curve is still kind of in effect. And we also have a lot of issues with estimation. Some of the tasks we thought would be very large, like our zip file compression bug, was actually just swapping a new library, so it got bumped down. And certain things we thought would be pretty easy, like adding a piece to a portfolio, turned out to be far more complex, so we had to bump them up.
Okay, so this transitions into one of the most important parts of our project. So what were we able to implement? So as John mentioned before, we focus our efforts this semester towards portfolio management. So here, the administrator roles are now able to open a portfolio period, and then through that, if you sign in as a student, you're able to see that portfolio period and then look at the summarized view of your pieces, and then you can add new pieces through that view. Moving on to bug fixes. We had a lot of bug fixes that we inherited from the previous project iteration, as well as new requests from our project sponsor. So some of the bug fixes we had is that, as John mentioned, when you want to export all the pieces that students have submitted, previously, the team had created an option to export it as a zip file, but as the content of the pieces grew, as the number grew, the zip file would come as corrupted. So what we did was we experimented with that, we confirmed that it was clearly broken, and then we implemented a new library. So that wasn't such a big hurdle as we thought it would be. Other bugs that we had was that the group submissions would mess up the count of individual pieces submitted, so we were able to address that issue. And then adding new fields to submissions, such as the hometown and display names, were added. And then plan functionality moving forward. Unfortunately, as we mentioned before, we had a rocky start that delayed our development, so we missed a couple pieces that we were planning. So being able to modify and delete the existing pieces that students had submitted was not implemented in time. That's a key feature that we want to implement as soon as possible. And then, as Brandon mentioned, the backend refactoring, there's a lot of dry code, there's a lot of stuff that can be refactored into simplifying it. We also have to, towards next semester, begin the scholarship functionality. So not only allowing users to submit a portfolio, but allowing the administrators to create individual scholarships that students can apply for, and then students, through that, after they're created, they can select which scholarships they want to apply their portfolio towards, and then allowing the judge to look at all the scholarships available and all the students submitted portfolios, and then being able to judge and rate them individually. And then risk moving forward, given that we are all students here, unfortunately we're not in 40-hour weeks to try to complete this project. So our work estimation and the hours we devoted each week they vary this semester, but next semester we're clearing up our schedules. We have lesser workloads, so we feel that we're gonna have more development time open up. We also need to boost our velocity, find a way to get more hours consistently. Now that our learning curve has gone down, I feel that we feel that we can progress more smoothly throughout the project and increase our velocity. As mentioned before, We felt that our teacher size estimation, was not the best, and we need to thoroughly sit down and take a look at each task and their edge cases and make sure that the estimation for each task goes accordingly, so we don't have to reevaluate after they have been done. And now after working with all of this, we're better informed and we feel like we can make more educated cases moving forward.
The final thing that we're going to deal with is our test plan and implementation. Due to our schedule slip, we didn't emphasize this as much this semester. We inherited a lot of tests, and currently we have 113 tests, which provide 75.86% code statement coverage. Both our front end and our back end are JavaScript. There's React on the front end and Node.js on the back end. So we're using statement coverage because lines can be deceptive with JavaScript as things get padded out. We're using the Mocha library for testing, which has a system of assertions and test scheduling that runs asynchronously or synchronously if it needs to. And something that we noticed on inheriting the project is the testing is primarily focused pretty much entirely on the back end of the project. So all of these tests are on the back end, and the front end is not as tested. There's a couple big challenges with testing for this project. The back end is very tightly coupled to the database, which means that all the tests that we're dealing with have to either create a lot of fake data or mock database interaction, which can get tricky. And something that we think may have been in play with the prior team not putting a lot of energy into front-end testing, or front-end automated testing, is that there are a lot of libraries and frameworks. These make development a lot easier on us because they do a lot for us, but testing them doesn't always play well because a lot of obfuscation of data, so the libraries aren't necessarily optimized for us digging in and checking values on them. In the future, we're going to expand the back-end testing to try and cover for our new functionality and increase that code coverage score. We think that it may not be the best plan to try and force automated testing on our front end. The system is very transparent in that there isn't a lot going on number crunching wise on the front end, where basically if a student has submitted a photo, it either shows up and it's good or it doesn't. So we don't think that automated testing will provide much value for all the overhead of implementation. We do, however, have a resource in that our sponsor has offered some of her students as testing subjects if we want to do user experience testing with live students. So we hope we can take advantage of that and use that insight to try and make the product a little prettier, because one of the ongoing miscellaneous tasks was a redesign, since right now it looks pretty basic. That's all we had today. So if anyone has any questions.
So one of the things you guys talked about was when you were looking at the system as it had been set up from the last team or prior. Have you run into any cases where you've had to kind of negotiate out or change some features that have already been implemented because they collide with something that you want to do in the future?
Less so collision and more just refactoring. The last team did a very good, succinct job of their project. So we found that inheriting it, the major problem has been that extensibility factor of it. They just weren't anticipating the scholarship behavior. One of the things we mentioned was that an art piece is very tightly coupled with a submission for a show entry, which means that any image on the website automatically has all these fields that only make sense for an art show, like whether or not you can buy a piece or whether they have extra prints, which doesn't make sense for a portfolio. So we, right now, have kind of duplicated functionality as we're just getting things up and running, but hopefully we'll be able to migrate some of that older functionality onto the more well-coupled and, less coupled and more cohesive version of all of these objects.
Yeah, the other question I had was, with the UX testing and kind of talking to actual users, have you found that there's been a disconnect between like some of the students you've been talking to versus the requirements given by your sponsor or your sponsor thinks?
We haven't actually done that yet.
Okay.
That's a planned task for next semester.
Sorry.
But the feedback so far has been, the use of the application has been seamless. Users haven't complained much about like the UI and the UX. The issue is that it's simple, it's nothing like too pretty or interactive. But there hasn't been any major issues other than the bugs that we highlighted, and those were mostly stuff that the administrators noticed.
Yep, awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
Our
most
main-
changes requested were from the faculty side of not being able to edit shows, for example.
Our main user is our sponsor, because they administer all the shows. So a lot of the like bug feedback that we've gotten has been just